My father's text arrived on a cold Tuesday morning. "Don't come to your sister's engagement party. The guest list is final." I stared at the screen, a familiar ache tightening in my chest. To them, I was just the quiet, disappointing daughter who had left home years ago and supposedly amounted to nothing. They didn't want me embarrassing their high society guests. So, I blocked his number, turned off my phone, and walked back inside the White House, where my actual life was waiting. But 3 days later, my sister called, her voice trembling and choked with tears. "How could you do this to our family?" she sobbed. My father had just opened the latest official White House magazine, expecting to see his wealthy business partners. Instead, he saw me. If you want to know how the family who threw me away ended up begging for my mercy, follow my story to the end. My name is Savannah Griffin, and at 40 years old, I've finally learned that family is defined by loyalty, not blood. Growing up, I was the invisible black sheep. While my younger sister Chloe was showered with praise, expensive dresses, and my father's undivided attention, I was the daughter Richard Griffin tolerated rather than loved. He is obsessed with appearances, and I didn't fit his carefully curated image of a perfect elite family. I was too quiet, too independent, and far too stubborn to play his social climbing games. If you are watching, please comment the city you're viewing from so I can see how far my story has reached. For years, I let them think I was struggling, living a mediocre life far away from their glittering circles. It was easier that way. But the depth of their cruelty didn't truly hit me until Chloe got engaged to the son of a powerful senator. My father was ecstatic, seeing this as his ultimate ticket into the country's most exclusive social ranks. I expected a formal invitation, or at least a polite phone call. Instead, my father sent me a cold, abrupt text. "Don't come to your sister's engagement party. The guest list is final. We need to make a flawless impression, and frankly, you just don't fit in." The words stung, but as I sat in my office looking out at the manicured executive mansion's lawns, I realized Richard Griffin had absolutely no idea who I had now actually become. I stared at the screen for a long, quiet moment, feeling the familiar sting of rejection wash over me. But this time, it was different. I didn't cry. I didn't type out a furious reply demanding to know why my own flesh and blood deemed me unworthy of a seat. Instead, I calmly took a deep breath, swiped my phone screen closed, and slipped it into my pocket. I did not need their validation anymore. In fact, I had far more important things to focus on. For 15 years, I had kept my professional life entirely separate from my family. Due to strict security protocols and a personal desire to shield my achievements from my father's transactional nature, they had no idea what I actually did. To them, I was just a low-level government clerk traveling for vague office work. But the truth was far more impressive than they could ever comprehend. I was a highly decorated lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, currently serving as a senior military aide to the President of the United States. Right now, my office was inside the West Wing of the White House. While my father and Chloe were obsessing over seating charts and floral arrangements for a local country club party, I was coordinating logistics for an upcoming state dinner. I was managing top-secret security briefs and preparing to host foreign dignitaries alongside the commander-in-chief. Walking down the historic, portrait-lined corridors of the executive mansion, the petty, superficial rejection of my family felt incredibly small and utterly irrelevant. I decided to completely shut them out. No arguments, no explanations, and absolutely no begging. I quietly went back to my duties, completely unaware that my dignified silence was about to set off a massive, unavoidable ticking time bomb back home. 3 weeks after my father's text, the military interest branch of the White House Press Corps published their quarterly National Leadership magazine. It was a highly prestigious publication, sent directly to prominent political donors, top business executives, and political elites across the country. And right there, gracing the front cover in full dress uniform, was me. The headline read, "Guardians of the Republic, Inside the Lives of the President's Trusted Military Advisors." The feature article spanned 4 pages, complete with high-resolution photographs of me walking alongside the president on the South Lawn, managing crisis communication, and leading tactical briefings in the West Wing. The interview highlighted my 15 years of dedicated service, my combat tours, and my current role in shaping executive military policy. I hadn't planned this as some elaborate revenge scheme. The interview had been scheduled months in advance, approved through strict military public affairs channels long before Chloe's engagement was ever announced. To me, it was simply a quiet, profound honor, a validation of the hard work I'd poured into my country. But to the rest of the world, especially the elite social circles in my hometown, it was a truly stunning revelation. The magazine landed on the mahogany desks of the city's most influential leaders, including the very senator my father was desperately trying to impress. The stage was set, and the quiet, disappointing daughter they tried to hide from their high society friends was suddenly the most highly respected, prominent name in their entire social circle. Exactly. The night of Chloe's engagement party finally arrived. I knew the event was in full swing at the city's most exclusive country club, but I had put it completely out of my mind. I was sitting in a quiet, dimly lit cafe near my apartment in D.C., enjoying a warm cup of tea, when my phone suddenly lit up. It was Chloe. I hesitated before answering. When I slid the bar to accept the call, the sound of muffled music and clinking glasses filled the line, closely followed by the sharp, ragged sound of my sister's breathing. Her voice was shaking, thick with tears and utterly frantic. "Savannah, how could you do this to our family?" she sobbed, her manicured composure entirely shattered. "You've ruined everything. The wedding is in jeopardy and Dad is having a complete meltdown." I kept my voice calm and perfectly steady. "I haven't done anything, Chloe. In fact, I'm exactly where Dad told me to be, far away from your final guest list." "Don't act innocent," she hissed. "Dad's future relatives, the senator's family, brought the latest White House magazine to the party tonight. He walked right up to Dad and showed him your face on the front cover. He was absolutely ecstatic. He spent 10 minutes praising our family for raising a literal national hero who works directly with the president." My heart beat steadily. I felt no pity. Chloe continued, her voice rising in panic. "He demanded to know why you weren't here. Dad tried to lie and said you were too busy traveling for a minor clerk job, but the senator laughed and said your office is literally down the hall from the commander-in-chief. Everyone knows Dad lied. We look like absolute desperate fools in front of everyone. Now, sister." Not even 2 minutes after Chloe hung up, my phone rang again. This time, the screen displayed my father's name. I let it ring to the very last second before finally pressing accept. "Savannah, thank goodness you picked up," Richard Griffin gasped, his voice stripped of all its usual cold, calculating arrogance. He sounded like a man who had just watched his carefully constructed empire of lies collapse in a single evening. "Savannah, listen to me. There has been a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. The text I sent you weeks ago. I was stressed. I wasn't thinking clearly. You know how chaotic wedding planning can get. I let the silence stretch between us, refusing to offer him an easy way out." "A misunderstanding, Richard?" I asked, deliberately using his first name to draw a firm, professional boundary between us. "Yes, of course," he pleaded, his breathing shallow. "The senator and his family are absolutely obsessed with your military career. They keep asking when you're arriving. I need you to catch the next flight to California, Savannah. I will pay for a first-class ticket, a private car, whatever you want. Just please, Show up tomorrow morning for the family brunch. If you aren't there, the senator will know I lied to him, and the engagement will be ruined. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city of Washington, D.C., where I had built a real life through sacrifice and honor. I'm afraid that's impossible, I replied calmly. My schedule in the West Wing is incredibly demanding. Besides, you made yourself perfectly clear, Father. The guest list is final, and I just don't fit in. Enjoy the party. I hung up, leaving him to face his own ruin. 2 weeks after that disastrous night, the consequences of my father's lies began to unfold. The senator's family, who were deeply patriotic and of exceptionally high moral standing, immediately put the engagement on hold. They were disgusted by my father's obvious deception and superficiality. Richard's daily, increasingly desperate calls to me went entirely unanswered. But my stubborn father wasn't a man who accepted defeat easily. He decided to take a massive, foolish, and risky gamble. Knowing I would be attending a prominent military gala in Washington, D.C., Richard used his high society business connections to secure a guest invitation. He flew across the country, determined to force a public reconciliation. I was standing near the grand ballroom entrance, speaking with several generals and senior officials, when I first saw him. Richard smoothed his lapels, plastered a fake beaming smile across his face, and marched directly toward us. "Savannah, my darling daughter," he boomed, loud enough to draw the attention of the surrounding officers. He tried to wrap an arm around my shoulder, looking at my colleagues. "Gentlemen, I'm Richard Griffin, Savannah's extremely proud father. We've always known she was destined for greatness." He was trying to play the proud patriarch, hoping I would play along to save face in front of my superiors. But he had severely underestimated me. I took a step back, stepping out of his reach. The generals watched us, the sudden tension in the air palpable. "Richard, please stop," I said, my voice perfectly clear and carrying across the quieted circle. "You are not a guest on my list tonight, just like I wasn't on yours. I am a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, and my achievements belong to my country and my own hard work, not to a father who deemed me an embarrassment just 2 weeks ago." Richard's face drained of color as the surrounding officers stared at him with cold, disapproving eyes. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He stood there frozen, a completely exposed, desperate social climber who was ultimately defeated by his very own cruelty and arrogance. The fallout from that night was swift and absolute. The senator's family officially broke off the engagement, refusing to align themselves with a man of such low integrity. With his lies completely exposed to his elite business partners, Richard's reputation in the city quickly and utterly crumbled. Chloe's lavish dream wedding was replaced by a small, quiet registry ceremony, and my father's company lost several major contracts. They had tried to sacrifice me for their social status, but in the end, their own greed was what destroyed them. As for me, I returned to my life in Washington, D.C. I didn't gloat, nor did I seek any further revenge. I simply went back to proudly serving my country, finding true peace in the honor of my uniform and the respect of people who value character over wealth. I learned that you should never let toxic, superficial people define your worth, even if they happen to share your last name. Now, I'm curious about those of you who have stayed with me until the very end. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have gone to the brunch to save your family, or would you have walked away like I did? Please comment your thoughts below and let me know. Meanwhile, I am leaving 2 other incredible stories on the screen right now that I know you will absolutely love. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next story.